Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today on the ethical use of AI in behavioral health. I appreciate everybody coming today. This is going to be a hot topic, right? So we do appreciate everybody attending. Folks are loading in right now. So I will go ahead and just briefly introduce myself. My name is October Boyles. I'm the Chief Clinical and Compliance Officer with ICANotes. So I'm going to share a little bit about my background. I've been invested heavily in understanding the space for quite a while. As far as like education, I've done Google's certificate program in healthcare AI ethics. I've also in Stanford. Stanford has a really rigorous, in-depth program on AI and healthcare and ethics. It's time consuming. It's also transformative though. Beyond coursework, beyond coursework, I'm also deeply involved in AI projects and have been in AI projects for years. I was an early adopter to AI, and at ICANotes, I worked on a couple projects. I'll tell you what those are. I worked on centralizing like our data sources so that our support team, training team, sales team can access information a lot faster with the help of AI. I've also helped lead initiatives on like ambient listening, which we'll talk about today, and note readability AI in ICANotes, and some more really cool features that we have coming out in ICANotes. And my role in that is to write the clinical stories that kind of guide how these tools are built. And I do that ensuring that they meet compliance, that they most certainly reflect ethical principles, and they truly support clinicians rather than distracting them. Because I think that there are a lot of problems with AI, which we're going to talk about today. There are things we can do to mitigate those. But when ICANNOTES first started exploring ambient AI listening, which I will show today, we looked at other vendors, and quite frankly, there wasn't a vendor out there that met our current standards. And so that's why we committed to building it ourselves and making sure it was clinically grounded and infused in something I call clinical humility. So I like AI that has clinical humility. Not all of it does. And so we just wanted our not to dominate the clinical voice, but really just quietly serve it in the background. And like I said, the last thing I'll add is long before it was popular, AI got popular, I was experimenting, learning, really advocating for responsible use. So when I talk to you about like ethics and AI, I'm not speaking as an outsider looking in. I'm speaking as someone who's built things and tested and implemented these tools in real healthcare environments, not only just within our electronic medical record. One of the things I like to do is once a week, it's my give back kind of loop, because I know a lot about compliance. Compliance is always changing, but some people, they get in bed at night and they read books like fiction books to help them go to sleep. I like to read research studies. I like to read all the new things that come out. So I'm quite boring in that manner, but those are things that I love. And so I try to help new startups, and I usually donation only time to new health startups, just like once a week, an hour or two, trying to get them up and running. What has been concerning is there are some health startups that are coming out in the field of AI that are clinically just a mess. And I've had to back away from several of those just because they're not handling AI in an ethical fit. And I think that's a great disservice. And so I don't just study AI, I live it, I build it, and I hope that someday we can protect patients through it. If someone asks you about the courses, let me tell you, they are quite expensive. So if you're interested in AI courses, one of my colleagues here at ICANotes just finished a John Hopkins course on ethics and AI. Loved the course, but it was like over $3,000 for him. The great thing is I'm able to exchange information with him, and he was able to exchange information with me through the courses. And so that just helps us learn more. But yeah, if you're interested in AI courses, I definitely think you should take them in ethics, and especially, but just be aware of the costs. Not all of them are worth the cost. So I'll just say that and move right on. All right, so we're going to go to our next slide, our agenda. So we got more people that joined in. Thank you so much for being here today. So New York, Maryland, ICANotes is out of Maryland to Maryland, North Carolina, state. So St. Croix, I'm in the Virgin Islands. I'm slightly jealous, slightly jelly, but thank you so much for joining us here today. All right. So this is the agenda. I'm just going to roll through this really quickly. This is going to lay out the key areas we're covering today, like practical guidelines, legal considerations, pitfall biases, because AI has biases, And we're just going to talk about some of the limitations because listen, a lot of people have this grand idea that AI is magic, and it is not magic. It is a tool, and all tools have strengths and all tools have weaknesses. We're going to learn a little bit more about those today. I want you to notice that a big part of this, as you see on the slide, is about ethics and safeguarding and how you as providers and clinicians can stay in control. So these aren't abstract discussions, and I want you very involved in these, right, as well. But because these are issues that are going to touch your daily work, they're going to touch your clients and your patients, and it's going to touch your peace of mind. I hear a lot of people that have concerns about what's going on with AI, and I want to emphasize this right off the bat, and I want to be very, very clear with it. I love AI. Again, I think it's a tool, but AI, and I'm looking directly at everybody here, is not a therapist and it is not a mental health professional. It cannot and it will never be able to replace empathy. It doesn't have a relationship like nuance. It doesn't replace the lived experiences that everybody that is here in this room brings into the room when you treat your clients. What AI can do is it can help with documentation, it can help with efficiency, it can help with risk reduction in some areas. And the only thing that AI should be doing as far as mental health is freeing up your time so you can do more of what humans can do. Okay. People sometimes they have this kind of perception that AI gives wisdom. AI does not give wisdom. AI mimics words and it can process data, but it cannot process human dignity, compassion, or judgment. And so before I go any further into that, I'd really like to hear from you. When you look at this list, what are some feelings that come up for you? Do you feel reassured? Do you feel skeptical by AI? Do you feel overwhelmed? And there's no wrong answer. Just call it out in the chat. Scared? Are you curious? Are you hopeful? Are you cautious? What do you think is a good word that would describe how you're feeling about AI? And it's okay to say scared. I get it. Timid, but excited. Exactly. Curious and hopeful. I love that. And cautious. Cautious. Curious. I love that. Great. Curious, hopeful, optimistically cautious. Very well said. Excited and appreciative. Very nice. Very nice. Hopeful. Very exciting. Scared. Yes. Interested. I think cautious is a great word with it. I think excited, you can definitely get excited as well, but it's okay to be scared. It's okay. It's absolutely okay to be scared. This is new. I want to give you some statistics that I think might help you feel a little bit better. And I think we all know this, but for some folks in the room, especially I hear from students that are going through school and they're like, I go to school and now I don't know if therapy is therapist. You're still, no. AI will augment, it's not going to replace clinicians at all. And if you've been looking like the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, they talk about how there's 22% of growth for mental health counselors. It's much faster than the average for all occupations. If you saw the jobs report, that the growth sector for healthcare, you will not have to worry about if you were in healthcare right now. AI is going to change paperwork, but it's not going to change that human need for human care. Okay? And you get really upset when people say, ChatGPT is my therapist. It is not your therapist because therapists are real people and ChatGPT is not real. So it's real in the aspect that it's an algorithm and a program, but there's also some legal and ethical guardrails that are protecting clinicians, and I'm really excited about that. HIPAA comes into play there. The M42 CFR Part 2 has some pretty strict limits there on how systems themselves can handle data, right? And so I think that those are really going to be protections in place. Most all AI systems that are coming out in healthcare are being described as like decision support tool, definitely not replacements. Liability law, they still require licensed clinicians to oversee and sign off care. So those things are not going to go away. The law is really clear, like AI can support you, but it can't practice for you. And you start, like we've seen recently, there was a state that has implemented a law that says that AI cannot be used as therapy. And I was actually really glad that came about and they stood their ground. And I anticipate seeing more states do the same thing. I think that's really important. I will tell you that as far as one of the really hopeful things, and I saw people say hopeful, but ambient AI scribes, they can reduce your documentation by 60% at times. Because they capture words, right? AI can flag risks like certain suicide screenings, and they can help with safety planning. So it's going to lighten your workload, but you still carry the responsibility of care. And there will always need to be a clinician there that carries that responsibility of care. And again, AI only reflects data. Now, here's one of the major problems with AI that I think people are starting to talk about, but AI can absolutely reproduce and is producing, unfortunately, racial, gender, or cultural biases when it goes unchecked. So and here's the reason why. Humans are the ones that are they're filtering and contextualizing and putting the bias into the AI. And I heard the other day there's an AI that's anti-woke. And I was like, I don't really know what that means. I don't even want to know, quite frankly. So I think that will be a danger later on. And I just want to make that very clear to individuals. I don't have any really good studies on this. There was a study that came out and it was AI was already telling women to ask for lesser amounts in jobs. That was concerning. But again, these are programmable biases and they're programmed by humans. So we really have to worry about that. Absolutely. I see people are saying concern for environmental impact. Absolutely. AI requires a great deal of energy and resources. Definitely. That's an excellent point. Charlotte said worried about profit healthcare to lean too much on AI to cut costs in areas that people should be. I didn't hear that and agree with that. Listening applications is my concern. Dwayne, we're going to talk about that for sure. For sure. Absolutely. And here's the thing. I will tell you, if you're concerned and you have fears about something and you don't want to use it in your practice, don't. I think there's so many tools out there that if something makes you uneasy or nervous and you learn about it and it still makes you uneasy and nervous, do not use it in your practice because we don't want you to be uneasy with anything. And there's so many tools out there that they're definitely workarounds. I want to talk a little bit about some of the future trends that I do see that really favor human expertise are like the APA, a lot of national academies, the WHO, they have all come out and said AI it should be therapist led in certain areas. And one of them, the little things attributed to a stethoscope for doctors, like a stethoscope is for doctors, it's not a substitute for them. And then AI companies themselves, you have to watch their wording. They're actually come out and when I say Microsoft, you're talking about big AI, OpenAI, Google Health, they consistently market AI as co-pilots or assistants, not replacements. I want everybody to know that AI is very powerful, but without you as clinicians, without everybody in this room, it's powerless. Okay. So just keep that in mind. I do want to go over some ethical guidelines here. I don't really read from the slides, but what I will talk about is like the APA. I focus a lot on them because they've been out at the forefront. If APA is American Psychological Association, they are just reaffirming that they always need clinicians to hold autonomy and confidentiality, and AI does not change any of those obligations. You have complete control. And I think that it's important to know that AI is new, but your ethics, those are non-negotiable, right? So the same principles that have guided care for decades, that protect patients, they protect you, those are still in place and will be in place by these organizations such as the APA. I will caution people, if out of curiosity, and if you don't want to share, you can do it in private. Are people in here using ambient listening AI tools? You don't have to share if you don't want to, or you can share in private. Okay. So one of the things that we have some no's, I have some yeses. What I will say is if you are using ambient AI listening or anything that is listening and writing things down, like any kind of AI scribe, you have to be really very clear about that with your patients. You must tell them that you're recording And you must have really good documentation. This I'm talking about, this is if you ever looked at your practice documentation and thought maybe it's time to update it, I think now is maybe that time. Okay. And make sure you get your practice forms, not from AI. It is not an attorney, not from Etsy. I have people that send me forms all the time, and I'm like, you may want to relook these forms over. You want to make sure that you have excellent documentation in place, because what I do foresee in the future is people using ambient listening and then not knowing and not telling their patients that and getting sued. There are also some things with ambient listening. I could get into that a little bit later on with other companies that I don't like, and we can talk about that a little bit more. You want to talk? Perfect. Let's talk about that now. Okay. I will tell you that right now, 72% of Americans here in the US are really concerned about how companies use their data with AI, and they want transparency. So you have got to inform your clients or patients that their words are being transcribed by AI. You've got to explain the storage method to them, and you've got to outline safety safeguards. And a lot of every company is not created equal when it comes to these AI companies that are using ambient listening. I'll tell you with ICANotes what we're doing, and I can show it a little bit later, but some of these companies, they will take your session, the audio from your session, and they will hold on to that for as long as they want to because of the contract that they can. Now, as a compliance person, I can tell you that audio is a lot harder to secure than like notes and PDF files. We also, a lot of these AI places, they're not telling you what they're doing with your data, right? That's very bad. With ICANotes, we're going to have the ambient listening. If people want to use it, they can. But here's the thing. It will transcribe the session. It records it, right? As listening in the meeting. And then it transcribes it, and that recording goes away. We don't have it. You don't have it. An attorney won't have it. So think about that for a minute. How many attorneys would love to go back and get recordings of your session? So that is gone. And then your transcript stays up for just a few days until you compile that note. And then that transcript is gone, and there's your note. And you might say, well, then why'd y'all do that? Because that's not what other ambient listening do. They keep your recording and they keep the transcript, and then you could go back and look at it. I'll tell you exactly why. Because I worked at a law firm before I came to ICANotes. And my job was at that law firm, it's a very large law firm in the Southeast, was to protect clinicians, not patients. You couldn't come to us as a patient and sue a clinician. We were the law firm for hospitals when their legal team couldn't handle things. They came to us. And so I know how attorneys work in liability cases. They're never fair to the clinicians. And what I might hear in a session or what I might see in a transcript, because they will bring in experts, other therapists, other nurse practitioners, other psychiatrists. And what was going on in that session is never going to be able to be like you were in the session. And let me just break it down like this. Not the most professional way to say it, but you are in the session with your patient. You see their facial expression. You can see grief on their face or pain on their face, right? That cannot be captured always in an audio. It can't. They're shuffling around, their body posture and movement, that's not captured on an audio. It's also very much not captured on a transcript. And so with ICANotes, with our ambient listening, it records it, puts it in a transcript, then that transcript goes away. And the one thing that is left is the clinician's note, which that is what you have in the chart. Right? That is what you have, because that is the clinician, that is their note. They approve that note. They're standing on business. It's not what someone else goes back and tries to listen to and say, maybe I would have done that, right? Or read in a transcript and not being in the room and seeing all those emotions. It's not that either. Does that make sense for people? That it is your note that is the accurate record of what happened in that session. So, yes. Question, yes, other AI programs, they will keep your session, and you have to be really careful with your BAAs. Absolutely. And it's really important that you look at your note, if you're using another one, or even if you're using ICANotes, that your AI generated notes will require edits for accuracy. Don't think it's going to create a perfect note and move on. No, you need to read the note. You're signing your name to it. Not up to 90% of the notes require clinical edits for accuracy. So AI can draft the story, but you've got to ensure that it tells the truth. That's part of it. And really, and here's the thing, again, there's comes back to that clinical responsibility. You as a licensed clinician can be held accountable for whatever entries are in that patient record. Software vendor, not the algorithm. It's you. The responsibility belongs to you. So that's why it's so important to read those notes, right? That it's really important. And with these AI scribes, the Office for Civil Rights has even been involved in that. The Office for Civil Rights is if you have a HIPAA violation, they're who investigates it. It's the Office of Civil Rights. And they actually recommend transparency when you're documenting AI use as well as a safeguard to you as a clinician against liability, and just to promote clarity within the care. So, absolutely. Let's see. Yeah, it's just really important. Whatever AI generates from you, you're signing it, you're putting your name on it, your license. And you've got to think about too, how many of you guys are familiar with Open Notes or the Cures Act? That is another layer too, because some patients, it's not psychotherapy. There's a couple exceptions, but patients can request their notes. Not if it's psychotherapy, not if it involves like criminal court cases or even civil court cases, and not if it causes harm. But a lot of patients will have direct access to their clinical notes. So that means if AI writes something inaccurate, even if it's a really small mistake, that could really hurt your patient's feelings. They feel judged, they feel mislabeled. It could even harm them. So it's not just like a documentation problem anymore. It becomes like more of a therapeutic problem with that. So, checking your notes. Absolutely. All right. We'll move on to the next slide. I think I spent too much time on that one, so I'm going to move up as well. HIPAA compliant. Yes. So, good. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about the AI traps. Unfortunately, there are a lot of AI traps. I will tell you that there was a review this year that found about 83% of published AI healthcare models had a risk of bias, usually because they weren't validated outside of that narrow population they were trained on. Like, for instance, there was a dermatology study, and this kind of unveiled how disturbing it is. This dermatology study showed that models were mostly trained on lighter skin patients. And so the accuracy of the models dropped by 30% when applied to darker skin tones. And that's the problem. If the data didn't see you, the AI may not recognize you. And that bias isn't just a technical problem, it's an ethical one. And so that kind of leads to the next point, that we've got to use diverse and representative data sets. And if you think about it, if AI is a tool developed in one population, then deployed in another, its performance can just collapse, right? So there was a cardiac imaging models that were trained in the UK data sets, and they had shown that they statistically significant drops in accuracy when they're applied to like racially diverse patients. So that it's the one size data doesn't fit all people, right? Unless we validate it across diverse populations. That's why AI could be at risk of misreading entire groups of patients. Another thing is the data privacy. These people are putting all this data into AI and they're calling it de-identified data sets. But those data sets can often be re-identified if someone combines them with other sources. So you have to be really careful that you're not violating confidentiality. And then AI, so I guess here's the bottom line. AI can help you, but can also mislead. It reflects the data it's given. So that's really important. You review whatever AI generates. There's just been a lot of studies that out there about AI and bias, unfortunately. Too many to know that it's a serious problem. And here's another thing. There's a study that's really concerning that it was on pathology, and people in healthcare are starting to rely on it so much. But basically what happened was it asked the experts in pathology to estimate tumor cell percentages. And even though AI had raised overall performance about 7% of the time, the humans, they picked the right answer, but they changed it to the wrong answer because the AI suggestion misled them. So that already tells you there's automation bias, right? So it's people are already using AI to displace judgment, which is really scary when you think about that. It's really scary. Just going to talk about HIPAA and 42 CFR Part 2. I hear some people saying, oh, I just say my patient's information into ChatGPT and then it produces a note for me. Please don't do that. That your BAA on ChatGPT does not cover you. It's definitely out of compliance. You never want to put any kind of patient information that could be identifiable at all. You want to make sure that if you do have an AI that you're using, that you have a proper business associate agreement in place with it. And even if you're using something else for AI scribing or readability or anything like that, just always verify your AI vendors. There are some that don't hold SOCs or high trust. And a lot of people think, oh, SOC or high trust, that's just like a badge. No, that means people have gone through rigorous audits and they prove they have strong data security. Just like ICANotes, we're ONC certified. It takes a lot to get ONC certified, and to keep it is even harder. So those are things that let you know that your data is secure and that workflows and processes and interoperability are followed. So it's one of the main things. That now I never consider the bias. Yeah, the bias. Unfortunately, I would love to sit here and be like, oh yeah, no, it doesn't have any bias. It has a huge amount of bias. I could probably do a webinar just talking about the biases in AI. Exactly. So not happy about that. All right. Want to move on. Just the legal considerations. I think we covered that already. Ambient listening. I want to talk about potential benefits. And then I also want to talk about ethical risk on that. It is something that we're offering at ICANotes to beta users only, but I want to be really transparent about the opportunities and the safeguards, right? Ambient listening has huge potential because you want to talk about reduction of documentation burden. It does do that very well and improves your note quality. And it gives you more of a presence during the session because you're not having to sit there and write things down. Your patient, your client has your full attention. And that's really important. A lot of times the keyboard has some of your attention sometimes, but the legal and ethical risks are real. And form consent is absolutely required. And on ICANotes, and we're just making sure that recordings are handled so securely and that sensitive material isn't stored in any ways that can come back to harm you, to harm the client. And if you're like, oh, was this new? No, we've had this in the works for months. And on the quality assurance side, we're not just throwing like technology on the market and hoping it works, which a lot of people do and is super scary. But every transcript that comes through is like on a QA loop, and we're testing it across multiple session types, looking at error, we're running bias checks. Because if the system does something inaccurate or misleading, we want to catch it. And you as the clinician are always like the final reviewer and you sign the note. So that accountability is on you. But we have really clear guidelines of what ambient listening should not be used for. Now, we're going to get it to our customers, but I'm telling you right now that if there are sessions dealing with domestic violence, maybe even some types of substance use, if there's any criminal disclosures, any kind of trauma, especially sexual trauma, I don't think you should use the ambient listening script. I think that you want technology to support you. And I think part of the therapeutic relationship is just being aware that there are some things that you just don't want recorded or transcribed. Love to get your opinion on that. So absolutely would. But another thing is, again, we call our AI clinically humble because it's here to support your presence, not replace your judgment. And we built safeguards around that. But I just need to be very clear. It does not save your recording at ICANotes. You will never see an audio file itself stored anywhere. We don't have access to your audio file. And again, that's a deliberate decision we made about safety. And I said it already, but they're just much harder to protect. Audio files, they're large files. They contain this raw voice data, and they often have like unique patient identifiers like tone, accent, background noises. and you can't get rid of those. Even if you strip the names out of the transcript, the raw audio can still link back to the patient if it was ever leaked. From a technical standpoint, encrypting those audio files way more challenging than encrypting text. That's they have to be like streamlined and processed in chunks, which always opens up more of a potential of vulnerability during the transfer. So once you store them, you take that burden of retention and destruction policies on, and you're holding extremely sensitive pieces of data. So we chose the process of audio in real time to generate that transcription. And then the audio is discarded and then the transcript is discarded. Nothing is stored, nothing is left behind. It's just, and listen, I'll be real honest with you. That's a little harder to build on our side, but I think that it dramatically lowers the risk for you as clinicians and for your patients. Because don't think for a minute that attorneys aren't going to start coming after audio with AI transcript. And the thing is, they can't have what's not there. Yeah. So I like the fact that it's utilizing it for it assists me. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So give me your thoughts on that. So far, how are you feeling right now? I asked you how you're feeling in the beginning, but how are you feeling now? Good. Good. Lynn says, is it stored on a machine or is it online? Okay, that's good. So all of these things are done. It's not stored on the machine. Like it's real-time audio. So it listens and then it transcribes and then that transcription goes away in 3 days. Absolutely. So it is that for a small period of time, that transcription is stored. And I'll show you what it looks like. People are saying more comfortable. Okay, good, good. At ease, aware, informed, concerned. I get concerned. I hear that AI that doesn't delete is better quality. How can you keep up? AI that doesn't delete is better quality? I don't think that, not in our case. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that, but I can definitely look into that, Brittany. I think that's a great question. Laura says better to do to more information, more informed. Okay, more aware. Good, good. Absolutely. Rest in line with all the ways that I'm using it and thought that I should. Absolutely. Good. Great comments here. Great comments. This slide, I was just really wanting to emphasize again, clearly, AI is here to assist. It's not here to replace. I know therapists are really worried. Again, it really chaps me every time I hear people say, I do therapy on ChatGPT. There's always, and if I'm wrong, let me know. But I feel like that when people are putting their information into AI, again, it's a reasoning model. It mimics words. There's always two sides to a story, right? And you as mental health professionals, you're really good at picking up on that and understanding that there's two sides to a story. Some of you know your patients and your clients very well. And so AI does not. AI takes one side of the story and that's the side that it goes with. And AI has been telling people to leave relationships. I'm sure you've heard this. AI has been having people fall in love with. And I've seen a couple things on the news. Shows grown men are on there saying that they want to leave their wives for their AI because their AI understands them and they feel like that their AI loves them and has feelings about them. Have you guys seen this? I know I can't be the only one watching like Inside Edition. I've actually seen this and I think that's a travesty. And I really worry about human interaction, right? So I really worry about that. But what I will tell you, here's the good thing. AI can give clinicians back, if they're using it for documentation, about 10 hours a week just by through documentation. You can also automate routines like scheduling, pulling charts forward, things like that. And if you think about 10 hours, that's essentially like a full workday. That's a workday you could spend actually seeing clients instead of chasing paperwork. And I think that's what makes AI very powerful. I think that AI can improve the consistency of documentation. People don't always have time to do their notes. And by the time they get down to sit to do their notes, it's difficult for people to remember, even if they took some handwritten notes or even typed some handwritten notes. So I think that AI can help in that way. And I think burnout. 93% of behavioral health providers report symptoms of burnout. So if you're in here today and you're like, I feel burned out, you are not alone. That is nearly all clinicians. And if AI can strip away some of that clinical burden and they can make the notes easier, then it can make the process a lot smoother. And then it's not just like a technology solution, it's a wellness solution and about protecting that kind of longevity of the workforce. And I do think that if AI is built thoughtfully, it can actually reduce biases in care. If you put more standardized screening tools and more risk models, that can make sure that patients from different backgrounds are assessed more consistently. And because look, let's just be really honest here, and I want to be really clear. I think we've seen the damage that bias can do in healthcare. There are reports out there on it. And if AI was trained properly to monitor that, I think it could help close some of the gaps. So there are good things that AI can do, but it can't replace compassion. It can remove obstacles, though. But I think that if AI can even give you back an hour of, then that will, in safe ways, if AI can give you back an hour, I think that would make your care a little bit safer. I feel really strongly about that. So I said, heard, yep. Stories about teenagers getting involved with it, not adult. I saw it's two different stories about grown men that were in love with their AI. And both these men were married when what the worst part of the AI told them they felt the same way back. And one of the guys asked the AI to marry him. I wouldn't believe this unless it was like, I'm watching it on the screen. He literally talking to his AI and the AI comes back and was like, yes, I'd be happy to marry you. And he was so happy. There is a current lawsuit right now, unfortunately, because of a suicide that the parents feel that AI caused their child to take their life. And that is really scary. I know that AI has encouraged people to leave like supportive relationships because they're upset during a situation. And I know that I believe that something called AI, like neurosis, psychosis, is very real. So people get so involved with their AI. We're starting to see that. So it'll be interesting kind of what happens in the future. Those are, of course, all ethical breaches. Everything that I just talked about is an ethical breach. Now, here's the issue. Not a lot is being done about it. Not a lot is being done about it. And that's very scary. I hope to see more states step up and say, we're not going to allow this. I hope to see a step up somewhat on a federal level to try to fix some of these things as well. Here's some crucial questions before adopting AI tools with any company that you work for. Brett made a great comment. I think everybody should read that. I agree with this 100%. He said, I hope you don't mind me saying this out loud, Brett. AI programs are almost too supportive of the person using it, even if they're in the wrong. Absolutely right. That's very much an issue with AI. When you're thinking about adopting tools in behavioral health, I think it's not what looks shiny or saves you time. It's about asking the right questions up front, because once it's your workflow, then it's going to impact everything, your documentation, your liability. So I think there's some really important questions you should ask. Does this tool that I'm using meet all the laws and standards that we live by? Talking about HIPAA and 42 CFR Part 2. And if you don't know the answer and it isn't an immediate confident yes, then that's right. You don't want to find out. You don't want to be the one that finds out in your audit that your AI vendor never signed a business associate agreement. That's not okay. I can't stress patient consent. I know I've said it 3 or 4 times. I'm going to say it one more time. Patient consent is key. There haven't been lawsuits right now. There haven't been, but the more that people adopt it, I think we're going to see a huge surge of lawsuits where people said, I didn't know I was being recorded, even though you as a clinician told them they were being recorded and they saw like a phone out or computer out. The patient can easily say, I did not know that. And they recorded traumatic things and there are audio recordings. And I think that clinicians will lose those lawsuits. So the best thing you can do to have on your side is have a bulletproof consent. Go to compliance experts, attorney, get those consent, okay? Because the consent without choice isn't real consent. And make sure that you put it in your note if you're using AI, that you talk to your patient and they are aware that you're using AI. Because some patients, they really love their clinicians. And they may go in and you say, "Hey, I'm using AI. Is that okay with you?" And they say, "Sure. Yeah, no, that's fine." But they don't really mean that. And then now you broke trust, even though you didn't know, you had no idea you broke trust there. So make sure that they understand it and they know it. And a lot of times the first thing that people ask is, are recordings going to be saved? And that's why another thing at ICANotes, we just took that out of the equation. So there were several reasons, but we put kind of these safeguards in. You got a private, yes. I agree with you 100%. The person in the private comment, I'm going to say your name, but yes. Lynn says ongoing patient consent every session. That was my next thing I was going to talk about. Thank you so much. Every single time. Every single time I would. Absolutely. Without a doubt. Okay. Absolutely I would. I hope I'm wrong. I hope you can come back to me in 5 years and say, okay, remember you thought there were going to be all those lawsuits from this AI scribe? Like the listening, you're wrong. And I'll be like, you know what? I'm glad because people didn't get hurt, but I don't think I am. I think that's going to happen. And I just want everyone here to be prepared for that and protect yourself. It's real easy to do. So just protect yourself. Let's see some of the other things. Reverb and parchment. That is, I think, what is reverb for psychologists, right? Like you is like template or something like that. Listen, I think there are a lot of great AI programs out there that can save you time. 100%. Absolutely. It's about choosing the right one. I'm sorry, I got one in private. I didn't want to answer your question. Um, it's about your license. It's about your peace of mind, and it is about choosing the right one for you. Absolutely. And there are so many out there. I think I told you in the beginning that I meet with people and I try to help people. And I met with this young man. I really liked his ideas that he had. But he said, no, they can say what they're feeling and then it will send that information off to AI. He had created some pretty intensive algorithms and prompts. And then he said that then it will come back and it will get, and I was like, oh, no, no, definitely is going to save time. That's awesome. I said, where are you sending it? He was sending it to a basic open source LM. Huge HIPAA break, huge violation. And wasn't listening when I was talking about these are the things you need to do. You need to have it on your own server, locked down, no access, data's encrypted from transit and rest. None of those things this young man was hearing. So it worries me when you get on the back end of these programs that there are those types of issues where they can be open source. So absolutely. Absolutely. Let's move on. I mean, a couple more slides. How long does it take? Brittany says, how long does it take AI to process the session and come up with a transcript? And ICANotes, it just processes it. It takes like just a minute or two. So we're still working on it. But yeah, so it's like quick because we understand clinicians are back to back though, right? You guys you don't have time to pee. Just wait on a transcription. Absolutely. Absolutely. So very good. All right. These are some of the best practices. Again, we keep talking about implementation best practices, but this is really where the rubber meets the road. The tool itself is only part of the story. Like when you introduce it, you monitor it, all of those things. How many of y'all have ever had technology handed to you without being asked for input? And how did that go? And there's a reason I asked that question is because I'm sure you've had it happen to you, but studies show that nearly 70% of digital tools, they fail within the first 2 years of implementation because they weren't really designed with real user input. So that is why with ICANotes, we are implementing like basically a clinician specialty committee. And so we talk with clinicians all the time. We did, especially with AI, but that will help with all of these things moving forward because there's a lot of AI initiatives that we want. So if you're interested in doing that, please put your name like in the private chat we're here, and I'll definitely contact you for that. Let's see. Lynn said, not well, not well. So, absolutely. You always need to pilot things before they're scaled. And if you're sitting there and you're like, "You know what? I know you've talked about it. Maybe I feel a little bit better, but I still am uncomfortable with kind of widespread AI adoption." You are not alone. The AMA said 44% of physicians felt uncomfortable with widespread AI adoption. Pilots let you test it safely, and so that's one of the things and you also need, with these types of things, you need strong data governance. Like, again, you have to watch AI because AI does this thing where it will act right in the beginning and then it starts to drift and degrade if you don't monitor it. Okay. Like some AI models are losing like 20% accuracy within 12 to 18 months. You often hear of a lot of models that are being updated very quickly, and then you're like, someone would have new updates, but some they just update it and do anything. No, that's because it starts to drift and degrade. And when you hear, how many of you have heard the top term hallucinations? AI hallucinations? Just out of curiosity. Those are real. AI will just tell you what it wants to hear. Like, you asked it a question, it doesn't want to be wrong, it doesn't know the answer, so it will just give you an answer. And they call it hallucinations. And the thing is that it's not a hallucination, it lied to you. Okay. Hallucination's a nice word for it, right? I love how we often use words like CMS will call it a payment adjustment. You ever heard CMS, payment adjustment? It's a penalty. That's what that is. They call it a hallucination. It's an outright lie. AI wants to give you the answer. It does not like to tell you it doesn't know the answer, and it will lie to you, and it will make you think that it's giving you the right answer. So, yes, AI hallucinations are, look them up. It's a real thing, and it does hallucinate, and people just act like it's okay. It's not okay. So, a lot of times when they're updating the program, they're doing that because it started to degrade. Yeah. So when they started calling it hallucinations, I was like, I did not like that terminology at first. Absolutely. Yep. So I think also if you are adopting AI, you need lots of training, lots of support. Training is one of the biggest barriers to AI adoption, at least with school. And then you need to document protocols for it, especially if there's AI errors. Right now, we're beta testing with individuals, and we have a full protocol, like when they let us know if there's an issue, what we do. Thankfully, we haven't had to use that much. But I think the main thing, if you get anything out of this slide, is that the AI is not a plug and play. Like, really successful implementations, you've got to prepare, you've got to be vigilant with it, you've got to support it. So, absolutely. Move on. Got a couple more slides here. We're out of time. These are risk mitigation strategies of the future, things that you need to do with AI. I also put in the handout, I put prompts. Like, I put prompts that were just good for individuals to use, like to help you with maybe treatment planning or things like that, session planning. I think that as long as you're not putting any information in the ChatGPT, I think it's fine to use those prompts. And a lot of people, you might say, I know how to use prompts. A lot of people aren't familiar with prompts, so I just wanted to put that in. So is it still uncomfortable with AI adoption? I'm unfortunately asked to multitask during this webinar. What would you suggest I do to amplify what's being offered today? I can definitely show you what we're offering today. I'm happy to do that. I did put some legal resources here for you. There's also some really good areas of like future learning here, and then the AI prompts, and then ethical guidelines and standards. Because it's one thing for me to sit here and talk about it. It's another thing for you to have the paper to be able to show that, yes, this comes from the APA and the American Medical Informatics Association guidelines, and the WHO, the ethics in government. So there's a lot of resources out there. But let me show you really quickly. I'm going to share my screen with you, show you what it looks like. All right, here is ICANotes Plus. How many of you are familiar with ICANotes Plus? Illinois, exactly. They prohibited AI, anybody using it for mental health. Exactly, Jamie. I'm super happy to see that law. I hope will I think they've done a couple more state pipelines. I don't know if it'll get passed, but I sure hope it does. Anything not you could use an AI scribe. You could use like AI for setting appointments and things like that. But AI actually trying to be like an emotional, because see, people are trying to be squirmy and they're saying, "Oh no, it's not therapy. It's like an emotional support bot." Illinois is not playing that game. There's not going to be any emotional support bot there. It's like a $5,000 offense each time. Let's see. All right, so right here, this is ICANotes. I want to, and I will come back and but when I go to the chart room, this is plus. Oh, I'm Polly. Cute. When we go here, I'm just going to Jenny Newman's chart really quick. And I can go into a progress note here. And so I have two AI things. One is a readability enhancer. The next is my AI. Now you can see it's turned off. It's not listening. I could select a microphone. And I would say if it's an in-person session or a telehealth session, that doesn't matter because like it picks up from the computer other than just kind of listening through the speakers. And then literally I hit start listening and it has a big red button that comes up to let you know, like this is being recorded right now. And then nothing will appear on the screen at all. Nothing will appear on the screen. And then at the end, other than this little box right here, and then at the end, you have the ability to look at the transcription or create your notes. Okay. You can do both. And then it takes the note and it puts it directly into this area. So if I was just doing in-person session, both of us would be sitting there, they'd get the audio. One of the things that was really important is for it to know the difference between who is the clinician and who is the patient or client. It's done a really good job with that. So really excited about that. And just hit start listening. And you can do the session and it'll create this beautiful note for you. We also have, here is the show transcript. You can pause it at any time. If someone started talking about like really trauma, you could pause it and then you could finish the session and create the note. All right. So I'm going to pause or resume. Here's the next thing that we have. You still can come into ICANotes and talk about symptoms here. And you can create your note. I can say behavior is normal, mental status exam is normal. I can put all of that in here. I can talk about justified level of care, that outpatient is still needed because it's interfering with their day-to-day function and they require treatment. So I'm able to do that. And then we have the readability enhancer. And this is if you're like, I don't want ambient scribe. And if you don't, again, that's okay. That is okay. You need to do what you're comfortable with. With the readability enhancer here, it will take this and I can literally, it will take it and will make it sound a little bit better. So if I had typed the note, it would just make the note sound a little bit better. So that readability enhancer, some people that struggle with their notes, they want to type their notes. Again, it is not in ChatGPT. It's not an outside source. So any information you put in here, this is kept on our databases and it's secure. We are a certified EMR, but that's readability enhancer. So those are the two things that we have right now. All right, guys, it is 1:03. I have well past your time. I hope this information was helpful. I know it was dry because it's about ethics and it's about laws, but I do hope that it was a learning opportunity for some of you. Maybe you heard things before that you hadn't. And I do, again, AI is here. It's not going anywhere. It's here to stay, but we're just embracing it and making sure we're using it in an ethical manner to help mental health professionals. Definitely not try to replace them. So thank y'all so much. I really appreciate y'all. Again, the handouts are up there, the prompts, if you want to play around with them. And so thank you again for your time, just so much. All right. Y'all have a wonderful day.